It was a day etched in American history. The nation watched, captivated, as a New York jury delivered a guilty verdict against former President Donald J. Trump. Never before had a U.S. president faced criminal charges, let alone a conviction. The trial, stemming from a hush money scheme during the 2016 election, had gripped the nation for weeks. Prosecutors argued that Trump directed illegal payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels to silence allegations of an extramarital affair. These payments violated campaign finance laws and amounted to falsifying business records. The verdict sent shockwaves through the country. Trump, who had consistently denied any wrongdoing, now stood branded a convicted criminal. The implications for his future and for American politics were profound. The eyes of the world were on New York City as the jury foreperson read the verdict. Guilty, they declared, on all 34 counts. Outside, crowds of protesters and supporters had gathered, their chants and slogans echoing through the streets. At the heart of the case were allegations that Trump had falsified business records to conceal hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels. Prosecutors argued that these payments, totaling $130,000, were made to protect Trump's image during the 2016 presidential campaign. They presented evidence that Trump, through his then lawyer Michael Cohen, had arranged for the payments to be made. These payments, prosecutors contended, were not simply personal expenses but constituted campaign contributions. By exceeding legal limits and failing to disclose them, Trump had violated campaign finance laws. The prosecution's case relied heavily on testimony from Michael Cohen, who had turned against his former boss and cooperated with authorities. Cohen testified that he had acted at Trump's direction and that the payments were intended to influence the election. The defense maintained that the payments were personal in nature and unrelated to the campaign. They painted Cohen as an unreliable witness, motivated by self-interest and a desire to exact revenge on Trump. Central to the case was adult film star Stormy Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford. Daniels claimed to have had an affair with Trump in 2006, which Trump denied. In the weeks leading up to the 2016 election, Daniels threatened to go public with her story, potentially damaging Trump's campaign. To prevent this, Trump, according to prosecutors, directed Michael Cohen to arrange a payment to Daniels in exchange for her silence. Cohen paid Daniels $130,000 just days before the election, securing her signature on a non-disclosure agreement. The payment, prosecutors argued, was a clear attempt to influence the outcome of the election. Daniels became a key figure in the case, her story captivating the nation and fueling intense media scrutiny. While she did not testify at the trial, her presence loomed large over the proceedings. The defense sought to discredit Daniels, portraying her as an unreliable witness with a financial motive. The trial itself was a media spectacle, with every twist and turn followed closely by news outlets around the world. The courtroom was packed with journalists, eager to report on the historic proceedings. Cameras were barred from the courtroom, but that did little to dampen the intense public interest. Each day, crowds gathered outside the courthouse, a mix of Trump supporters and detractors. Protests and counter-protests erupted with chants of "Lock him up," met with shouts of "Fake news." Inside the courtroom, the prosecution and defense presented their cases, each side seeking to sway the jury. Throughout the trial, Trump maintained his innocence, denouncing the proceedings as a witch hunt and a politically motivated attack. The prosecution presented a range of evidence to support their case, including financial records, emails, and text messages. They argued that these documents showed a clear pattern of deception and an effort to conceal the true nature of the payments to Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, was a central figure in the prosecution's case. Cohen testified that he had arranged the payments to Daniels at Trump's direction. Another key witness was Alan Weisselberg, the former chief financial officer of the Trump Organization. Weisselberg testified that he had helped to orchestrate the payments and had disguised them as legal expenses. The defense sought to discredit the prosecution's witnesses, portraying them as unreliable and motivated by self-interest. They argued that Cohen, in particular, was a liar and a convicted felon who was seeking to reduce his own prison sentence by cooperating with the government. They also pointed to inconsistencies in the witnesses' accounts, suggesting that their memories were faulty or that they had been coached by prosecutors. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict: guilty on all 34 counts. The courtroom, packed with reporters, lawyers, and members of the public, fell silent as the foreperson read the verdict. Trump, who had not been present for the trial, was reportedly watching the proceedings from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. The verdict was a stunning rebuke of the former president and a historic moment in American history. The conviction sent shockwaves through the political establishment and the nation at large, with many wondering what the implications would be for Trump and for the country. The jury's decision came after days of deliberation, during which they requested to review key pieces of evidence and testimony. They ultimately found the prosecution's case compelling, concluding that Trump had knowingly and intentionally violated campaign finance laws and falsified business records. The verdict was unanimous on all counts. The guilty verdict carried with it the possibility of significant prison time for Trump, though the actual sentence would be determined by the judge at a later date. The former president faced a maximum sentence of 4 years on each of the 34 counts, though it was considered unlikely that he would receive the maximum sentence. As news of the guilty verdict spread, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to denounce the outcome and lash out at his perceived enemies. He repeated his claims that the trial was a witch hunt and a politically motivated attack orchestrated by his opponents. He accused the judge, the prosecutors, and the jury of bias, claiming that they had been rigged against him. Trump's response was defiant and unapologetic. He showed no remorse for his actions and vowed to appeal the verdict, insisting that he would ultimately be exonerated. His supporters echoed his claims, expressing outrage at the verdict and accusing the justice system of being corrupt and unfair. They rallied around their former leader, pledging their continued support and vowing to fight against what they saw as a politically motivated prosecution. Trump's defiant response did little to quell the controversy surrounding the verdict. The guilty verdict against Trump sent shockwaves through the American political landscape, further dividing an already polarized nation. Trump's supporters rallied around their former leader, denouncing the verdict as a political witch hunt and accusing the justice system of being rigged against him. The verdict also ignited a fierce debate about the rule of law and the accountability of powerful figures. Trump's critics argued that the verdict demonstrated that no one, not even a former president, is above the law. They hailed the outcome as a victory for democracy and a sign that the justice system could still hold powerful people accountable for their actions. The political fallout from the verdict was immediate and far-reaching. Democrats largely applauded the outcome, seeing it as a validation of their claims that Trump had engaged in illegal activity. Republicans, on the other hand, were divided in their response. The guilty verdict against Trump carried with it the possibility of significant legal repercussions, including prison time. Though Trump vowed to appeal the verdict, the conviction raised serious questions about his future and whether he could potentially face jail time. The specific sentence Trump would receive remained uncertain and depended on a variety of factors, including the severity of the crimes, his lack of prior criminal history, and the sentencing guidelines in New York State. Legal experts debated the potential range of sentences, with some suggesting that Trump could face a sentence of probation, while others believed that a prison sentence was a real possibility. The judge presiding over the case would ultimately decide Trump's sentence, taking into consideration the arguments of both the prosecution and the defense, as well as any mitigating or aggravating factors. The sentencing hearing was expected to be a highly anticipated event, with the nation watching to see what punishment, if any, Trump would face. The possibility of a former U.S. president facing prison time was unprecedented in American history and would have profound implications for the country. The guilty verdict against Trump threw the Republican Party into turmoil, exposing the deep divisions within the party and raising serious questions about its future direction. Trump's hold on the party remained strong, but the conviction presented a significant challenge to his continued influence and the direction of the GOP. In the wake of the verdict, Republican leaders and strategists grappled with how to navigate the tumultuous political landscape. Some argued that the party needed to distance itself from Trump, fearing that his continued presence would alienate moderate voters and damage the party's long-term prospects. They called for a return to traditional conservative values and a focus on policy issues rather than personality. Others, however, remained steadfast in their support for Trump, arguing that he was the victim of a political witch hunt and that his populist message still resonated with a large segment of the electorate. The Republican Party faced a crossroads. The outcome of this internal struggle would have significant implications for the future of the GOP and for American politics more broadly. The guilty verdict against Donald Trump marked a watershed moment in American history, raising profound questions about the rule of law, the accountability of powerful figures, and the future of American democracy. The conviction of a former president, once unthinkable, had become a reality, leaving the nation grappling with the implications. The verdict served as a stark reminder that no one, not even a former president, is above the law. It reaffirmed the principle of equal justice under the law and sent a message that those who violate the law, regardless of their power or position, will be held accountable for their actions. The conviction also exposed the deep divisions that continued to plague American society. The long-term consequences of the Trump presidency and its tumultuous aftermath remain to be seen. The guilty verdict, however, marked a turning point in American history, forcing a reckoning with the country's past and present and raising profound questions about the future of American democracy.